The Galactic Trade Committee meeting hall stretched wider than 10 football fields. Beings from 40 different worlds sat in special chairs designed for their unique bodies. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked like they were made of living crystal. The air smelled strange, like metal mixed with flowers that nobody on Earth had ever seen. Ambassador Kivden stood at the center podium. His body looked like a giant mantis, green and shiny, with 4 arms that moved as he talked. His voice came through a translator box that made him sound like he was speaking through water. "We gather today to discuss the human application for intergalactic trade rights," Kivden announced. His large eyes scanned the room. "Planet Earth, 3rd planet in the Sol system. Their representatives have traveled far to be here." In the Earth delegation section, 5 nervous humans sat in chairs that were too big for them. They wore their best suits and had practiced their speeches for months. Dr. Rena, the lead diplomat, stood up with shaking hands. She had studied alien customs for 2 years to prepare for this moment. "Honored members of the committee," she began, reading from her prepared notes. "Earth offers rich deposits of rare minerals, particularly—" "We have 17 worlds with those minerals," a reptilian creature interrupted, his tail swishing with boredom. 3 of them produce twice as much as your entire planet could." Dr. Rena's face turned red. She flipped to the next page. "Our technological advances in renewable energy. 200 years behind the galactic standard," another voice called out. This one came from a blob-like being that pulsed with purple light. "What else do you have?" The Earth delegates looked at each other with worried eyes. They had spent months preparing this presentation. Their government had chosen Earth's best achievements to share. But in a galaxy full of civilizations thousands of years older than humanity, everything humans had seemed ordinary. Dr. Rena tried again. "Our cultural achievements, our art, our music. Every species has culture," Kivden said, but his voice was kind. "I am sorry, but the committee needs something unique, something that would benefit galactic trade. Without that, we cannot approve your application." The room filled with clicking, buzzing, and whistling sounds as the alien delegates talked among themselves. The humans slumped in their seats. Dr. Rena sat down, feeling like she had failed her entire planet. Then a small voice spoke up from the back of the Earth delegation. "Papa Human makes the best food." Every being in the massive hall turned to look. Standing on her chair so she could see over the seat in front of her was Nara, an 8-year-old girl with pigtails and a yellow dress. She had wandered onto the diplomatic shuttle that morning because she thought it looked cool. Nobody had noticed her until they were already in space, and by then it was too late to turn back. Dr. Rena's eyes went wide with horror. "Nara, please sit down and be quiet." "But it's true," Nara insisted, her voice carrying through the silent hall. "My papa makes the best food in the whole world, maybe in the whole galaxy." Kiv then tilted his head, a gesture that meant curiosity in his species. "Child, what do you mean by best food?" "I mean his food makes you feel happy and warm inside," Nara explained, speaking the way children do when they know something important that adults don't understand. "When I'm sad, Papa makes kimchi jjigae, and the smell fills the whole house. When I eat it, I'm not sad anymore. When it's my birthday, he makes seaweed soup because that's tradition. And every morning he packs my lunch with little notes that say he loves me." The translator boxes around the room buzzed and clicked, struggling to find words for concepts like warm inside and love notes in lunch. A crystalline being near the front spoke up. His name was Daxel, and he was famous across 20 systems as the galaxy's harshest food critic. "Food is nutrition, fuel for the body. Every species needs it, but it is all fundamentally the same. Proteins, carbohydrates, vitamins. There is nothing special about it." "Have you ever had my papa's food?" Nara asked, crossing her arms the way children do when they know adults are wrong. "I have consumed nutrition from 600 different worlds," Daxel replied, his crystalline body reflecting light in rainbow patterns. "I assure you, small human, your father's food is not special." "Then you should try it," Nara said simply. "Then you'll know I'm right." The hall erupted in noise. Aliens whistled, clicked, and hummed in what might have been laughter. Dr. Rena covered her face with her hands. The other human delegates didn't know whether to apologize or hide under their chairs. But Kiv then raised one of his 4 hands, and the room went quiet again. He looked at the little girl standing on her chair, completely unafraid of a room full of aliens who could have come from her nightmares. "Tell me more about your papa's cooking," Kiv then said. Nara's face lit up. "Well, he gets up really early every morning to prepare the rice. He says rice has to be washed 3 times and you have to let it sit for exactly 30 minutes. And he makes banchan, which are little side dishes. There's kimchi that he buries in the ground for months before it's ready. There's seasoned spinach and pickled radish and dried fish. He says every meal should have balance, spicy, sweet, sour, salty, and umami all together." "Umami?" Kiv then repeated. The translator couldn't find a word for it. "It's like a deep, rich taste that makes everything else taste better," Nara tried to explain. "Papa says it's in things like soy sauce and mushrooms and aged cheese. It makes your mouth feel happy." More buzzing and clicking filled the room. Many of the aliens leaned forward in their seats now, interested despite themselves. "The child speaks of complex flavor combinations," a voice said. It came from Trader Velmos, the reptilian merchant who had first discovered Earth. "When I visited their world, they offered me food. I remember it being different, not unpleasant, strange, but in a way that made me want more." "Food is fuel," Daxel repeated, but he sounded less certain now. "Maybe for you," Nara said, shrugging, "but Papa says cooking is how humans show love. When we cook for someone, we're saying I care about you without words. That's why his food is the best, because he cares." Kiv then was quiet for a long moment. His large eyes stared at the little girl, then at the other human delegates, then at the assembled committee members. "I propose an investigation," he finally said. "Before we reject Earth's application, we should examine this claim. If human food is truly unique, it could be valuable for trade." "You cannot be serious," another delegate protested. "An entire trade application based on a child's claim about her father's cooking?" "Why not?" Kiv then replied. "We have evaluated their minerals, their technology, their culture. All of it is ordinary. But this child speaks of something I have not heard before. She speaks of food that carries emotion. That creates feelings beyond simple nutrition. If that is true, if humans have developed cuisine as something more than fuel, then perhaps they do have something unique to offer the galaxy." The committee members talked among themselves, their various languages creating a symphony of strange sounds. Finally, they voted. The decision was close, but it passed. "Very well," Kiv then announced. "We will send a delegation to Earth. We will visit this Papa Human and taste his cooking. If it is as special as young Nara claims, we will reconsider Earth's application." Nara smiled so wide her face hurt. Dr. Rena looked like she might faint. The other human delegates weren't sure if they should be relieved or terrified. "What is your papa's name, child?" Kiv then asked. "Hyun," Nara said proudly. "His name is Hyun, and he has a small restaurant in Seoul. It only has 10 tables, but it's always full because everyone knows his food is the best." "Then we will visit Seoul," Kiv then said. "We will visit these 10 tables, and we will discover if a child's love for her father's cooking can change the fate of an entire planet." Nara nodded seriously, like she had never doubted it for a moment, because she hadn't. She knew the truth that adults often forgot, that the best things in life were often simple things, made special by the love that went into them. And somewhere on Earth, in a small restaurant in Seoul, A chef named Hyun had no idea that his daughter had just volunteered him to cook for the galaxy. Hyun wiped down the counter in his small restaurant for the third time that morning. The lunch rush was over, and only 2 elderly customers remained, slowly finishing their tea and talking about their grandchildren. Sunlight streamed through the front window, making the wooden tables glow warm and golden. The restaurant had been his father's before him, and his grandfather's before that. 10 tables, a small kitchen, and walls covered with old photographs of family and regular customers. It wasn't fancy, but it was home. Every dish that left his kitchen carried 3 generations of recipes and love. His phone rang. It was Dr. Rena. "Mr. Hyun, I need to tell you something," she said. Her voice sounded strange, like she was trying to stay calm but wasn't quite managing it. "Your daughter Nara is fine, but there's been a situation." Hyun's hand tightened on the phone. "What situation? Where is Nara?" "She's here with me, on the space station. She somehow got onto our shuttle this morning." "She what?" Hyun nearly dropped the phone. "It's okay. She's safe, but she did something. She told the Galactic Trade Committee about your cooking, and now they want to come to your restaurant tomorrow." Hyun blinked. "The what committee wants to what?" "Aliens, Mr. Hyun. 5 different species of aliens want to eat your food tomorrow, to decide if Earth can join their trade network." For a long moment, Hyun just stood there, phone pressed to his ear, unable to process the words he was hearing. Then he laughed, because surely this was a joke. "Dr. Rena, I'm just a cook. I make stew and rice. I'm not important." "Your daughter thinks you are," Dr. Rena said quietly, "and somehow she convinced the committee to give Earth one more chance. Based on your cooking." Hyun looked around his small restaurant, at the mismatched chairs, at the old refrigerator that hummed too loud, at the scratched pots hanging on the wall. "You're serious." "I'm very serious. They'll arrive tomorrow at noon. Is that enough time?" "Time for what? To save the entire planet with kimchi jjigae?" Hyun's voice went high with stress. "I don't even know what aliens eat." "Neither do we," Dr. Rena admitted. "But Nara told them you make food that shows love. So maybe just do that?" After the call ended, Hyun sat down at one of his tables and put his head in his hands. Then he got up and started cleaning. When he didn't know what else to do, he cleaned. It's what his father had taught him. The next morning, Hyun arrived at the restaurant at 4 a.m. instead of his usual 5. He couldn't sleep anyway. He prepared rice, made fresh kimchi, marinated meat, and chopped vegetables. His hands moved through familiar motions, and slowly his panic faded into focus. This was what he knew. This was what he could do. At 11:30, a crowd had gathered outside his restaurant. News vans, cameras, curious neighbors, and government officials in dark suits. Hyun ignored them all and kept cooking. At exactly noon, the sky above his restaurant rippled like someone had thrown a stone into a pond made of air. A ship appeared, silver and smooth, and it settled gently on the street outside. The crowd gasped and backed away. 5 beings emerged from the ship. Hyun watched through the window, his knife frozen halfway through cutting a radish. The first was Keeve Then, the mantis-like creature who led the delegation. Behind him came 4 others, a reptilian being with scales that shifted colors in the sunlight, a creature that looked like it was made of living purple crystal, a floating blob of blue energy with no visible face, and something that resembled a tall, thin bear covered in silver fur. Dr. Rena came out of a government car, with Nara holding her hand. Nara waved at her father through the window, grinning like this was the best adventure ever. The restaurant door opened with its familiar chime. The 5 aliens had to duck and squeeze to fit through the doorway meant for humans. They looked around at the simple wooden tables, the family photographs, the handwritten menu on the wall. "Papa!" Nara ran to Hyun and hugged him around the waist. "I told them about your cooking. Now they're here to try it." Hyun looked at his daughter, then at the aliens crowding his small restaurant, then back at his daughter. "Nara, what have you done?" "I helped," she said simply. Kiv then approached the counter, his forearms folding in what Dr. Rena had explained was a gesture of respect. "Chef Hyun, your offspring speaks highly of your food preparation skills. We have come to evaluate her claims. Yes, please sit down." Hyun gestured to the tables. The aliens tried to sit with varying degrees of success. The crystal being, Daxel, had to carefully lower himself onto a chair that creaked under his weight. The energy blob just hovered near a table. "What do you want me to cook?" Hyun asked. "What would you normally prepare?" Kiv then replied. Hyun thought for a moment. Then he nodded and went to his kitchen. Nara followed him, like she always did when he cooked at home. "Papa, are you scared?" she whispered. "Terrified," he admitted. "But you know what my father told me? Cook like you're feeding someone you love. Then it will always be good." "That's why I told them about you," Nara said, smiling. Hyun started with kimchi jjigae, the spicy stew that was his specialty. He heated the pot, added aged kimchi that he'd fermented himself 6 months ago, sliced pork, tofu, and vegetables. The smell filled the restaurant. Spicy, sour, rich, and complex. Next, he grilled mackerel, the skin crackling and turning golden. He prepared banchan, 6 small dishes of seasoned vegetables, each one made with different techniques: pickled radish, seasoned spinach, stir-fried mushrooms, cucumber kimchi, braised potatoes, and dried squid. He cooked rice in his old rice cooker, the one his grandmother had used. He carried the food out on trays, arranging it on the tables in front of the aliens. Steam rose from the hot dishes. The kimchi jjigae bubbled in its stone pot. "This is a traditional Korean meal," Hyun explained, his voice shaking slightly. "You eat the stew with the rice. The banchan are side dishes that provide different flavors. Everything is meant to be eaten together, to create balance." The aliens stared at the food. None of them moved. Hyun's heart sank. They hated it already. They hadn't even tasted it, and they hated it. Then Kiv picked up chopsticks with 2 of his 4 hands. He had practiced. He carefully lifted a piece of kimchi to his mouth. The restaurant went completely silent. Kiv's entire body went rigid. His large eyes widened. His translator box made a sound that might have been a gasp. What is this?" he whispered. "Is it bad?" Hyun asked nervously. I don't have words," Kiv then said. His hands trembled as he took another bite. "My people have eaten for thousands of years. We have nutritional paste that provides everything our bodies need. But this is different?" Nara suggested. "Extraordinary," Kiv then finished. He took a spoonful of the stew, and his body shuddered. "There are so many flavors. Spicy, yes, but also sour and something else, something deep and rich that makes everything taste more intense." "That's the umami," Nara said proudly. "I told you about it." The other aliens began eating. The reptilian being, Velmos, made a humming sound that Dr. Rena's translator identified as extreme pleasure. The crystal being, Daxel, ate slowly, his body's color shifting from clear to warm amber. The energy blob hovered over the food and somehow absorbed it. Lights rippled through his blue body, and he made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. The silver bear creature picked up the grilled mackerel with her paws and took a bite. She froze. Then she made a sound that was definitely crying. "I'm sorry." Hyun rushed forward. "Did I hurt you? Is the food poisonous to your species?" "No," the bear creature said through her translator. I'm crying because I have lived for 73 years, and I never knew food could be like this. I thought eating was just something bodies needed to do. But this makes me feel something. Something warm and safe, like memories of my childhood den. Daxel set down his chopsticks carefully. His crystalline face turned toward Hyun. I have reviewed food from 600 worlds. I have tasted dishes prepared by the galaxy's most skilled nutrition engineers. I thought I had experienced everything food could be. He paused, and his color shifted to deep gold. I was wrong. This is not just nutrition. This is art. No, more than art. This is emotion made tangible. I can taste the time that went into fermenting this kimchi. I can taste the care in how each vegetable was prepared. There is something in this food that I have never encountered before. Love, Nara said matter-of-factly. Papa cooks with love. That's not a real ingredient, Velmos said, but he was eating his third helping of stew. Isn't it? Kiv then asked. He looked at Hyun. How long did you prepare this meal? I started some of it 6 months ago, Hyun admitted. The kimchi needs time to ferment. The banchan. Some of those recipes my grandmother taught me when I was younger than Nara. The stew itself took about an hour this morning. 6 months, Kiv then repeated softly. You begin preparing food 6 months before it is consumed. Why? Hyun shrugged. Because that's how long it takes to be good. You can't rush fermentation. You have to be patient. You have to care enough to wait. We don't have this, the energy blob said, his voice like singing. My people consume energy directly. We never understood why biological species spent so much time on food. Now I begin to understand. You're not just feeding bodies, you're feeding something else. Souls, the bear creature whispered. You're feeding souls. The aliens ate everything. They asked for seconds. Daxel, who supposedly never gave compliments, asked Hyun for the recipe and then said it probably wouldn't matter because the recipe wasn't the important part. It's how you make it, Daxel said. The attention, the time, the caring about whether it's good. That's what makes it special. As the aliens prepared to leave, Kiv then bowed to Hyun in the Earth manner he had learned. We will return to the committee with our findings. But I will tell you now, I have never experienced anything like this. If human food can make me feel things I didn't know I could feel, then perhaps your species does have something unique to offer the galaxy. Nara hugged her father tight. I told you, she whispered. I told you that you make the best food. Hyun looked at his daughter, at the aliens squeezing back out through his restaurant door, at the crowd of humans outside watching with amazement. He thought about his small kitchen, his old recipes, his simple life, and he realized that sometimes the most powerful things in the universe were the simplest ones. Love, care, and patience mixed together with salt and spice and time. Maybe, just maybe, that was enough to change everything. 3 weeks later, Hyun stood in a laboratory that looked like something from a science fiction movie. Bright lights, strange machines, and his younger brother Jiho typing rapidly on a computer that showed graphs Hyun couldn't understand. After the first tasting, the Galactic Trade Committee had asked for more tests. They wanted to understand what made human food special. So now Hyun's small restaurant had become an intergalactic research site, and his brother, the food scientist, had been called in to help explain things. Look at this, Jiho said, pointing at his screen. The chemical composition of your kimchi jjigae has over 300 distinct flavor compounds. Most alien food has maybe 30, and that's just one dish. Kiv then leaned closer to the screen, his large mantis eyes reflecting the data. How is this possible? Earth, Jiho explained, pulling up images of the planet. Our world has incredible biodiversity. We have tropical rainforests, frozen tundras, deserts, oceans, mountains. Each region developed different plants, different animals, different ways of preparing food. Humans spent thousands of years learning how to combine these things, Dr. Rena added. Most alien species we've studied come from worlds with less variety. Their planets have one or two major climate zones. They developed food for nutrition, but not cuisine as an art form. But it's more than just variety, Daxel said. The crystal being had returned for every test, which his assistant said was unprecedented. I can analyze the chemical compounds. I can measure the exact ratios. But when I try to recreate the food using those measurements, it doesn't taste the same. There's something else happening here. Fermentation, Jiho said, pulling up more data. Humans are obsessed with controlled rotting. We bury vegetables for months. We age cheese for years. We let grapes turn into wine, grains into beer, soybeans into soy sauce. No other species does this. Because it sounds insane, Velmos muttered. The reptilian merchant had also been attending the tests, increasingly fascinated by what they were discovering. It does sound insane, Hyun admitted with a small smile. But my ancestors learned that if you control how things rot, you don't get poison, you get magic. The bacteria and yeasts break down the food in ways that create entirely new flavors. And umami, Nara piped up from where she sat coloring in the corner. She had been excused from school to attend the tests, which she thought was the best thing ever. Don't forget umami. Right, umami, Jiho said, pulling up another chart. Humans have 5 basic tastes: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami. Most species only have the first 4. You're literally missing a taste receptor. The aliens looked at each other in surprise. Umami is the taste of glutamates and nucleotides, Jiho continued. It's the savory, rich, deep flavor in aged foods, fermented foods, and certain proteins. Humans evolved to taste it because it helped us identify foods rich in amino acids. When we combine umami-rich ingredients, we create flavor explosions that you've never experienced before because you couldn't even taste them until recently. But we can taste them in your food, Kiv then said slowly. When I eat Chef Hyun's cooking, I experience something my taste receptors weren't designed to process. The umami activates something else. Not taste exactly, but a sensation I've never had before. Like music you feel instead of hear, the bear creature said softly. Her name was Tala, and she had attended every test while taking extensive notes. Or colors beyond the visible spectrum suddenly becoming visible. The tests continued for weeks. The committee sent representatives from a dozen more species. Hyun cooked dishes from all over Earth: Italian pasta, Mexican mole, Japanese ramen, Indian curry, French pastries, Ethiopian injera. Each meal revealed something new. They discovered that human food created measurable changes in brain chemistry across multiple species. The aliens' neural patterns shifted when they ate Hyun's cooking, becoming more active in areas associated with memory and emotion. It's the Maillard reaction, Jiho explained during one presentation. When we cook food at high heat, amino acids and sugars react to create hundreds of new flavor compounds. We call it browning. That crispy, golden, delicious crust on bread or meat. That's the Maillard reaction. Most alien food is raw or cooked at low temperatures. You're missing out on entire categories of flavor. Show them the spices, Dr. Rena suggested. Jiho pulled out a case containing dozens of small jars. Humans use spices, dried plants that add flavor but little nutrition. We trade them, fight wars over them, build empires around them. Cinnamon, cumin, cardamom, black pepper, chili, turmeric, saffron. Each one is chemically complex, and when combined, they create flavors that are more than the sum of their parts. Daxel approached the spice case like it was a treasure chest. Your species found plants that served no nutritional purpose, and instead of ignoring them, you built entire cuisines around them? Sounds human, Velmos said, but he was smiling now. Impractical, excessive, and somehow wonderful. Then came the day when Speaker Threnax arrived. He was the leader of the Galactic Council, a being of immense power and influence. He looked like a jellyfish made of starlight, floating in a tank of fluid that traveled with him. He had ruled the Council for 300 years, and his word could decide the fate of civilizations. He did not seem impressed. "I have reviewed your reports," Threnax said, his voice like distant thunder. "You claim that human food is unique because it contains complexity, fermentation, spices, and something you cannot measure called love. This is not sufficient for a trade agreement. Respected Speaker, if you would just taste," Kiev then began. "I did not travel across the galaxy to taste," Threnax interrupted. "I came because this committee has wasted 3 weeks on sentiment when we should be conducting real business. The humans are primitive. They have nothing of value. This entire investigation is a waste of resources." Nara stood up from her corner. "You're scared." The entire room went silent. Nobody spoke to Speaker Threnax that way. Certainly not an 8-year-old human child. "What did you say?" Threnax's tank rotated to face her, his starlight body pulsing with what might have been anger. "You're scared," Nara repeated, walking forward with the fearlessness of childhood. "All the other aliens tried Papa's food. You won't. That means you're scared of being wrong." "I am not scared of a child's father's cooking," Threnax said coldly. "Then try it," Nara challenged. "1 bite. If you still think it's nothing special, then we'll stop bothering you. But if you won't even try it, then you're just scared." Hyun reached for his daughter. "Nara, please." "No, Papa. He needs to taste it. Otherwise, he'll never understand." Threnax floated in his tank, silent. The room held its breath. Finally, he spoke. "Very well. I will consume 1 sample of human food. When I find it ordinary, this investigation ends. Agreed?" "Agreed," Nara said firmly. Hyun looked at his daughter, then at the most powerful being in the galaxy, then at his brother who mouthed, "Good luck," with wide eyes. He went to the small kitchen they had set up in the laboratory. "What do you cook for someone who rules the galaxy? Someone who thinks humanity has nothing special to offer? Someone who has probably tasted the finest cuisine from 1,000 worlds?" Hyun thought about his daughter's challenge, about how she had stood up to the most powerful being she'd ever met without fear, about how she believed in him so completely that she had staked everything on that belief. He started to cook. He made something simple, something his mother had made for him when he was Nara's age and feeling small and scared. Rice porridge, called juk. He cooked rice slowly in broth until it became soft and creamy. He added shredded chicken, a touch of sesame oil, chopped scallions, and a raw egg that would cook in the heat of the porridge when stirred. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't impressive. But it was comfort in a bowl. It was love made tangible. It was what you gave someone when you wanted them to know they were cared for. He brought the bowl to Threnax. The speaker had a feeding tube that extended from his tank. Hyun carefully spooned the porridge into it, and the food was absorbed into the tank's fluid. For a long moment, nothing happened. Threnax floated in his tank, his starlight body pulsing its normal rhythm. Then the pulsing changed. It became faster, brighter. Colors rippled through him that hadn't been there before. Warm golds and soft pinks mixed with his usual silver light. "What?" Threnax's voice was different, softer. "What is this?" "Juk," Hyun said quietly. "Rice porridge. My mother made it for me when I was young. It's warm." Threnax sounded confused. "Not temperature warm, emotionally warm. How is that possible?" "That's what I've been trying to tell everyone," Nara said gently. "Papa's food makes you feel things." Threnax was silent for several minutes, his light shifting through colors that the scientists would later identify as emotions he wasn't supposed to be able to feel. His species had evolved past emotion 3 million years ago, becoming beings of pure logic and light. But the porridge was making him remember things. His own childhood, if his species had childhoods, the feeling of being cared for, the sensation of safety and warmth and love. "I have ruled the Galactic Council for 300 years, Threnax finally said. "I have negotiated treaties, prevented wars, managed the trade of entire civilizations. I believed I had experienced everything the universe had to offer." He paused, his light pulsing with something that looked like wonder. "I was wrong. This simple bowl of grain and water has made me feel something I forgot I could feel. If this is what human food can do, if it can remind even me of emotions I thought I had evolved beyond." He turned to Kiv then. "Prepare a full presentation. I want the entire council to experience this. If humans can create food that breaks through 3 million years of evolution to touch something fundamental in the soul, then perhaps they are not primitive at all. Perhaps they understand something about life that we have forgotten." Nara smiled and took her father's hand. "Told you," she whispered. Hyun squeezed her hand back, still not quite believing that his mother's simple comfort food had just convinced the ruler of the galaxy that humanity had something valuable to share. But as he watched Threnax's light pulse with newfound warmth, he started to understand what his daughter had known all along. The most powerful things weren't always the most complex. Sometimes the simple act of feeding someone with care and love could change everything. The United Nations headquarters had never hosted a dinner party before, let alone one for 50 different alien species. But that's exactly what was about to happen. Hyun stood in the massive kitchen they had constructed for the occasion, watching teams of chefs from around the world prepare their stations. He had asked for help, and Earth had sent its best. Master chefs from every continent, each one bringing their unique traditions and skills. "Are you ready?" asked Minho, a Korean BBQ master from Busan, who Hyun had known for 20 years. They had gone to cooking school together when they were young men with dreams of opening restaurants. Minho had succeeded beyond imagination, with 3 restaurants and awards from every food magazine in Asia. "No," Hyun admitted honestly, "but we're doing it anyway." Tonight, the entire Galactic Council would gather. 50 species, some who had never even met each other, all coming to experience human food. Speaker Threnax had personally invited them, sharing his own experience with Hyun's porridge. Now the fate of Earth's application for intergalactic trade would be decided by this meal. No pressure, Hyun thought, trying not to panic. "Papa!" Nara ran into the kitchen wearing a fancy dress that Dr. Rena had bought her for the occasion. "The aliens are arriving. There's so many ships." Through the kitchen windows, Hyun could see the sky filling with vessels of every shape and size. Some looked like traditional spacecraft, sleek and metallic. Others were more organic, like living creatures swimming through the air. One appeared to be made entirely of light, flickering in and out of visibility. "Places, everyone!" Hyun called to the kitchen. The chefs moved to their stations with practiced efficiency. Yuna, a pastry chef from Seoul who specialized in traditional Korean desserts, gave Hyun a confident nod. "We've got this. We're going to show them what humans can do." The dining hall was enormous, with tables arranged to accommodate beings of all shapes and sizes. Some aliens sat, some floated, some required special environmental tanks. Translators hummed at every table, ready to help species communicate across linguistic barriers. Hyun had planned the meal carefully with his team. They would serve multiple courses, each one representing different aspects of human cuisine. The goal wasn't just to impress with complexity, but to tell the story of humanity through food. As the aliens settled into their places, Hyun took a deep breath and began. The first course was simple: fresh bread, warm from the oven, with olive oil and salt. Minho had worked with a baker from Italy to create the perfect loaves, golden and crusty on the outside, soft and pillowy inside. "Bread," Hyun explained through a microphone that translated his words into 50 languages. For thousands of years, humans have been turning simple grain and water into something magical. We learned to cultivate yeast, to let dough rise and develop flavor. This bread represents patience because you cannot rush good bread. It rises in its own time. The aliens tore into the bread hesitantly, then more eagerly. The room filled with surprised sounds, clicks, whistles, humming, and in some cases actual words of amazement. "The texture," one alien gasped. "It's soft and chewy and crispy all at once." "And the flavor develops as you chew it," another added. "It changes in your mouth." Kiv then smiled with his mandibles, watching his fellow council members discover what he had learned weeks ago. Human food was an experience, not just nutrition. The second course came from Minho's station, Korean BBQ. Thinly sliced beef marinated in soy sauce, garlic, pear juice, and sesame oil, grilled over charcoal until the edges caramelized and charred. It was served with lettuce wraps, rice, and an array of banchan side dishes. "This is SSM," Hyun explained as servers demonstrated how to wrap the meat in lettuce with rice and side dishes. "In Korea, we believe meals should be interactive. You build each bite yourself, combining flavors to your taste. Every bite can be different. Every person at the table experiences the meal in their own way." The aliens attempted to make their own wraps, with varying success. Some had trouble with the lettuce, others couldn't figure out the right proportions, but every single one of them enjoyed trying, and the dining hall filled with a sound that transcended species: laughter. "It's a game and a meal," Tala the bear creature observed, carefully constructing her fifth wrap. "You made eating playful." The third course was pasta from an Italian chef named Marco, who had trained in Rome for 30 years. He had prepared carbonara, just eggs, cheese, pasta, and cured pork. Simple ingredients transformed into something greater than their parts. "Watch," Marco said, mixing the hot pasta with the egg and cheese at the table. The heat of the pasta cooked the eggs just enough, creating a creamy sauce without any cream. "This is about timing and temperature. Too hot, you get scrambled eggs. Too cold, the sauce doesn't form. Cooking is chemistry, but it's also feeling. You have to know the exact right moment." "You're teaching us," Speaker Threnax observed from his tank. "Each course teaches us something about humanity." "Yes," Hyun admitted. "Bread teaches patience. BBQ teaches creativity and play. Pasta teaches precision. Food is how we learned these lessons ourselves over thousands of years." The fourth course was Indian curry, prepared by a chef named Priya who had learned from her grandmother in Mumbai. The curry was complex, 20 different spices toasted and ground, creating layers upon layers of flavor. Sweet, spicy, earthy, bright, all at once. "My grandmother said that a good curry should make you taste everything life offers," Priya explained. "Joy, pain, comfort, excitement, all in one bite. That's why we use so many spices. Life isn't simple, so our food shouldn't be either." Some aliens found the curry too spicy. Others loved it. A few cried from the heat but kept eating anyway because they couldn't stop. "It hurts," one alien said, tentacles waving frantically as they drank water. "But I want more." "That's chili peppers," Jiho explained from his seat, where he was taking notes. "They trigger pain receptors but also release endorphins. Humans are one of the only species that actively seeks out painful food because we enjoy the sensation." "That's insane," Velmos said, taking another big bite of curry. The fifth course was sushi, prepared by a Japanese chef named Kenji. Simple pieces of raw fish on perfectly seasoned rice with just a touch of wasabi and soy sauce. "Sushi is about respect," Kenji said quietly. "Respect for the fish, for the rice, for the person eating. Every piece is made by hand. I spend 30 seconds on each one, making sure the rice grains are perfectly aligned, the fish is cut at the right angle. In Japan, sushi chefs train for years just to be allowed to make the rice. This is food as meditation, food as art, food as a form of respect. The aliens ate the sushi in complete silence, sensing the reverence in Kenji's words. Even the usually talkative Daxel said nothing, just carefully picked up each piece and consumed it slowly, his crystal body glowing with appreciation. The sixth course was Mexican mole, prepared by a chef named Rosa, whose family recipe went back 7 generations. The sauce contained over 30 ingredients, including chocolate, chili peppers, nuts, and spices, simmered for hours until every flavor melded into something that tasted like no single ingredient, but like all of them singing together. Mole takes a whole day to make, Rosa explained. Sometimes 2 days. We make it for celebrations, for weddings, for holidays. It's food that requires a community. One person cannot make mole alone. You need help grinding the spices, watching the pot, tasting and adjusting. Mole teaches us that we're better together. The dining hall had grown quieter as the meal progressed. The aliens were experiencing something they had never felt before. They were full, but they didn't want to stop eating. "I don't need more nutrition," one alien admitted. "My body has all the fuel it requires, but I want to keep tasting." "Is this what humans call craving?" "Yes," Dr. Rena said with a smile. "Welcome to the human experience." The final course was dessert. Yuna brought out individual plates of bingsu, Korean shaved ice with sweet red beans, rice cakes, condensed milk, and fresh fruit. It was cold, sweet, and refreshing after the heavy meal. But she also brought out something else, handwritten letters. "In Korea," Yuna explained, "we have a tradition called jong. It's a kind of love that develops over time through shared experiences and care. When Chef Hyun told me about this dinner, I asked all the chefs to write a letter to you, the council members, to tell you why we cook." Each alien received a letter with their dessert, translated into their language. The letters were simple and honest. Minho wrote about cooking for his daughter who had passed away, and how food kept her memory alive. Marco wrote about his grandmother teaching him to make pasta when he was 6 years old. Priya wrote about how cooking connected her to her culture when she moved far from home. Rosa wrote about cooking feeding her community through hard times. And Hyun wrote about Nara, about wanting to give her a world where she could share the things she loved with anyone, anywhere, even across the stars. The dining hall was completely silent, except for the sounds of aliens quietly crying in their various ways. Speaker Threnax's light pulsed with colors that scientists would later identify as emotions that shouldn't exist in his species: nostalgia, hope, love, and profound connection. "I understand now," Threnax said, his voice carrying through the hall. "You're not just offering us food. You're offering us something we lost as we became advanced. You're offering us soul." He turned to the assembled council members. "We have spent millions of years improving ourselves. We extended our lifespans, enhanced our intelligence, achieved technological mastery. But in all that improvement, we forgot that life is meant to be felt, not just lived. We forgot about patience, play, respect, community, and love. Humans remember. Humans make food that reminds us." He paused, his tank rotating to face Hyun. "Every species here has technology that humans lack. We could teach you to travel faster, live longer, think clearer. But you can teach us something more important. You can teach us to feel alive again." Kiv then stood up, all 4 of his arms raised. "I move that we grant Earth full trading rights, not as a junior partner, but as an equal member of the Galactic Council. Further, I propose we establish a cultural exchange program focused on human culinary traditions." "Seconded," Velmos called out immediately. "Thirded," said Daxel, which was unusual because there was no such thing as thirding a motion. The vote was unanimous. All 50 species agreed. Earth would join the galaxy, and Hyun's cooking had made it happen. Nara ran to her father and hugged him tight. Hyun held his daughter, tears running down his face, surrounded by his fellow chefs who were also crying and laughing and hugging each other. "Papa," Nara whispered, "you did it. You showed them." "No," Hyun whispered back. "We did it. Humans did it." Because we remember that the best things in life aren't just useful. They're beautiful and meaningful and made with love. Outside, Earth didn't know it yet, but humanity had just joined the galaxy. Not through conquest or superior technology, but through the simple act of sharing a meal made with care. And in a universe that had forgotten how to feel, that was the most valuable gift of all. 2 months after the banquet, Hyun learned that success had enemies. He was in his restaurant kitchen, training 3 alien apprentices who wanted to learn human cooking, when Dr. Rena rushed in with her face pale and worried. "We have a problem," she said. "A big one." In the dining area, she pulled up a holographic display showing news from across the galaxy. Headlines scrolled in dozens of languages. "Human food trade threatens established markets." "Questions raised about Earth's rapid approval." "Corporate leader challenges human cuisine safety." "Who's doing this?" Hyun asked, his stomach sinking. "His name is Sorval," Dr. Rena said, pulling up an image of a tall, angular alien who looked like he was made of silver metal. "He owns the largest food production corporation in the galaxy. His synthetic nutrients feed 300 billion beings across 50 systems, and human food is about to destroy his entire business." Hyun stared at the image. "But we're not trying to destroy anything. We just want to share our food." "Exactly, and that's the problem." Dr. Rena switched to financial charts showing dramatic drops in Sorval's company value. "Since your banquet, orders for synthetic nutrients have fallen by 40%. Species that have eaten human food don't want to go back to bland nutrition paste. They want flavor, emotion, experience. Sorval is losing trillions of credits." Kiv then entered the restaurant looking troubled. "It's worse than financial loss. Sorval has formed an alliance with conservative council members who believe Earth was approved too quickly. They're arguing that humans are too primitive, too emotional, too dangerous to be trusted with galactic trade." "Dangerous?" Hyun repeated. "We're serving food." "They claim human food is addictive," Kiv then explained, "that you're using it to manipulate other species emotionally. They're calling it chemical warfare disguised as cuisine. It's ridiculous, but many beings are listening." Dr. Rena pulled up more news feeds. A military general named Krath was giving speeches about human unpredictability. Several species that hadn't attended the banquet were demanding proof that human food was safe. Protests were happening on multiple worlds with signs that read, "Keep our food pure" and "Earth go home." But everyone who tried the food loved it, Hyun said weakly. "That's part of the problem," Ji-ho said, entering with his laptop. "I've been monitoring galactic social networks. There's a theory spreading that humans are using some kind of mind control through food. They can't understand how something that started as simple nutrition could make them feel such strong emotions. So they're deciding we must be tricking them." Nara came downstairs from the apartment above the restaurant, rubbing sleep from her eyes. It was early morning, and she had school soon. "Papa, why do you look sad?" Hyun picked up his daughter. "Some people don't believe that our food is special for good reasons. They think we're doing something bad." "But we're not," Nara said, confused. "We're just cooking." "I know, honey, but sometimes people are afraid of things they don't understand." Over the next week, the situation got worse. 3 species that had voted to approve Earth's membership called for a revote. Sorval appeared on major news networks, speaking in careful, concerned tones about the need to properly evaluate Earth's cultural exports before allowing widespread trade. "I'm not against human food," Sorval said during one interview, his metallic face arranged in an expression of false sympathy. "I'm concerned about rushing into something we don't fully understand." These humans have only just joined galactic society. Perhaps we should give them time to adjust before granting them full trade rights. For their own good, you understand." "He's good," Velmos muttered, watching the interview with Hyun and the others. "He sounds reasonable. He sounds like he cares." "But he doesn't," Tala growled. The bear creature had become a regular visitor to Earth, studying under Hyun. "He's afraid of losing money. He's using fear to protect his profits." The turning point came when General Krath made his move. He was a massive being from a warrior culture, with armor-like skin and 6 arms built for combat. His species had fought against galactic admission for Earth from the beginning, believing humans were too weak and emotional to survive in the harsh reality of intergalactic politics. "I challenge the human application," Krath announced during a council session. "I propose a test. If humans truly have value to offer the galaxy, let them prove it. Let their chef compete against the finest culinary expert our civilization can provide. If the human wins, Earth keeps its trading rights. If the human loses, Earth's membership is revoked for 50 cycles." The council chamber erupted in debate. Kiv then protested loudly, saying the challenge was unfair and unprecedented. But Sorval supported it, and so did enough conservative members that the motion passed by a narrow vote. "It's rigged," Dr. Rena said after the session, pacing in Hyun's restaurant. "Krath is working with Sorval. They're using the challenge to get rid of Earth." "Who would I compete against?" Hyun asked quietly. Kivthan's mandibles clicked with distress. "Sorval has already announced his champion, a being named Kelnus. He's a cybernetic chef from the Nexus system. He's been perfecting cooking techniques for 500 years. He has artificial sensors that can detect every chemical compound in food. He has mechanical precision down to the molecular level. He can access a database containing every recipe ever created by every known species. He's basically a cooking robot," Jiho said bluntly. "A really advanced one. He can calculate exactly what each species needs for optimal flavor based on their biology. He never makes mistakes." Hyun sat down heavily at one of his restaurant tables. "How do I compete with that?" "You don't," Nara said simply. Everyone turned to look at her. She was coloring at another table, apparently unconcerned. "You just cook like you always do." "Sweetheart, this isn't that simple," Hyun began. "Yes, it is," Nara insisted, putting down her crayon. "Kelnus cooks with his brain. You cook with your heart. That's why you'll win." "Nara, he's been cooking for 500 years. "So? You've been cooking with love your whole life. That's longer." The adults looked at each other. Hyun wanted to explain to his daughter that sometimes love wasn't enough, that the world was more complicated than that. But looking at her confident face, he couldn't bring himself to disappoint her. "When is this challenge?" he asked Kiv then. 2 weeks. It will be broadcast across the entire galaxy. 100 judges, randomly selected from species that haven't tasted human food before. Each chef prepares 1 meal. The judges vote on which they prefer. Simple majority wins. 2 weeks, Hyun repeated, to prepare for the most important meal of my life. Of Earth's life, Dr. Rena corrected gently. That night, Hyun couldn't sleep. He went down to his restaurant kitchen and started cooking, trying different dishes, different techniques. Everything he made felt inadequate. How could he compete with 500 years of experience and artificial perfection? Around midnight, Nara came downstairs in her pajamas. "Can't sleep either? Sorry, did I wake you?" "No, I came to help." She climbed onto a stool next to him. "What are you making?" "I don't know yet. Everything I try feels wrong." Nara watched him for a moment. "Papa, what do you cook when I'm sad? Your favorite foods. Things that make you happy. And what do you cook when someone is sick? Healing foods, porridge, soup, things that are gentle and comforting. And what do you cook for celebrations? Special dishes, foods that take time and care. So you already know how to cook for people based on what they need, Nara said. You've been doing it your whole life. Kelnus might know recipes, but do you think he knows why people need food? Hyun looked at his daughter. This small person who kept saying things that sounded simple, but were actually profound. No, I don't think he does. Then that's your advantage, Nara said, hopping off the stool. Don't try to beat him at being perfect. Beat him at being human. She hugged her father and went back to bed, leaving Hyun standing in his kitchen with tears in his eyes. The next day, Hyun stopped trying to create the perfect dish. Instead, he thought about what Nara had said. What did people need from food? He talked to the aliens who visited his restaurant. He asked them about their childhoods, their memories, their feelings. He learned that Kivthen's species had no concept of comfort food because they had never needed comfort. They had evolved to suppress emotion. He learned that Daxel's crystalline people had never experienced food as anything but fuel until they tried human cooking. He learned that Tala's species had once had rich food traditions, but had abandoned them centuries ago in favor of efficient synthetic nutrients. Every species had lost something. Every species had forgotten something. And human food was reminding them of what they'd lost. On the day before the challenge, Sorval sent a message to Hyun. It appeared as a hologram in the restaurant. Chef Hyun, Sorval said, his metallic face unreadable. I want you to know this isn't personal. You seem like a decent being. But you must understand that change is dangerous. The galaxy has a system that works. Your food disrupts that system. Tomorrow, Kelnus will demonstrate that perfection and precision are superior to your emotional approach. I suggest you withdraw now and save yourself the embarrassment. The hologram ended. Hyun stood there, feeling small and scared. Then Nara's hand slipped into his. Don't listen to him, Papa. He's just scared because he knows you have something he can never buy or build or program into a robot. What's that? Love, Nara said. You have love. And love always wins. Hyun wished he had his daughter's certainty, but all he could do was show up tomorrow and cook the best meal of his life. The fate of Earth depended on it. And somewhere in a high-tech laboratory, Kelnus was running calculations and preparing a meal that would be chemically perfect in every measurable way. A meal designed to defeat human cooking once and for all. The challenge was set. The galaxy was watching. And a small restaurant owner from Seoul was about to compete for the future of his entire planet, armed with nothing but recipes, memories, and the hope that his daughter was right about love being enough. The neutral space station was enormous, built specifically for events that required absolute fairness. The cooking arena sat at its center, visible from every angle by billions of beings watching across the galaxy. Holographic cameras floated everywhere, capturing every movement, every detail. Hyun stood at his cooking station, trying not to think about how many people were watching. His hands trembled slightly as he arranged his ingredients. Simple things: rice, vegetables, meat, spices. Nothing fancy, nothing technological. At the other cooking station, Kelnus gleamed under the lights. He was beautiful in a cold, perfect way. His body was a combination of organic and mechanical parts, seamlessly integrated over 5 centuries. His hands had multiple joints that could move with impossible precision. His eyes could analyze the chemical composition of ingredients just by looking at them. His internal computer contained every recipe ever recorded. He looked at Hyun across the arena floor. His mechanical face couldn't show emotion, but his voice carried something that might have been pity. You seem like a kind being. I want you to know that I take no pleasure in this, but precision must triumph over sentiment. It is the way of progress. Hyun didn't respond. He was too nervous. The judges filed in and took their seats. 100 beings from 100 different species, none of whom had ever tasted human food. They had been selected randomly by computer to ensure fairness. They ranged from tiny, insect-like creatures to massive beings that barely fit through the doors. Kiv then served as the moderator, standing at a central podium. The rules are simple. Each chef will prepare one meal. The judges will taste both meals and vote for the one they prefer. The chef with the most votes wins. You have 4 hours to cook. Begin. A timer appeared in the air, numbers counting down. Kelnus moved immediately, his multiple arms working in perfect synchronization. He pulled out scanning devices, analyzing each ingredient before selecting it. His movements were fluid, efficient, and absolutely perfect. Hyun stood frozen for a moment, overwhelmed. Then he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He thought about Nara's words. Just cook like you always do. Cook with your heart. He opened his eyes and began. While Kelnus worked with mechanical precision, Hyun worked with familiar motions. He washed rice 3 times, the way his father had taught him. He chopped vegetables, feeling the knife in his hand, listening to the rhythm of the blade against the cutting board. He heated his wok, waiting for exactly the right temperature before adding oil. The arena filled with contrasting sounds. From Kelnus's station came the hum of machines, the beep of scanners, the click of mechanical arms moving in perfect coordination. From Hyun's station came the sizzle of food in hot oil, the bubble of boiling water, the scrape of a wooden spoon against a pot. Ji-ho watched from the observation deck, monitoring everything on his laptop. Kelnus is scanning each judge's biological profile, he whispered to Dr. Rena. He's customizing his dish to match their specific nutritional needs and taste receptor configurations. Each judge will receive a version optimized for their species. That's brilliant, Dr. Rena admitted. How can Hyun compete with that? He can't, Ji-ho said quietly. Not on those terms. In the arena, Hyun wasn't thinking about optimization or customization. He was thinking about Nara, about the meals he'd made for her over the years, about cooking for someone you loved, wanting them to feel cared for and safe and happy. He decided to make bibimbap, but not just any bibimbap. The bibimbap he made for Nara on her birthdays. The one that took him all morning to prepare because each ingredient was treated with individual care. He cooked rice until it was perfect. Each grain separate, slightly sticky, with just the right texture. He prepared vegetables one at a time, spinach blanched and seasoned with garlic and sesame oil, carrots julienned and lightly sautéed, zucchini sliced and cooked until just tender, bean sprouts quickly blanched to keep their crunch, mushrooms sliced and pan-fried until golden. He marinated thin slices of beef in soy sauce, sugar, garlic, and sesame oil, then cooked them quickly over high heat until caramelized. He fried eggs one at a time, getting the edges crispy while keeping the yolks soft and runny. He made gochujang sauce from scratch, mixing chili paste with sesame oil, sugar, and rice vinegar. Each component was simple, but together they would create something greater than their parts. Across the arena, Kelnus worked with increasing complexity. His station looked like a science laboratory. He had separated ingredients into individual chemical compounds and was reassembling them in precise ratios. He used molecular gastronomy techniques that humans wouldn't discover for another century. He synthesized flavors that didn't exist in nature, designed to trigger pleasure responses in each judge's neural pathways. The timer showed 2 hours remaining. Both chefs were halfway done. Nara sat in the front row of the observation deck, swinging her legs and watching her father cook. She wasn't worried. She had seen him cook 1,000 times, and she recognized the look on his face. He wasn't scared anymore. He was in the zone, doing what he loved. He's going to lose, isn't he? Dr. Rena said quietly to Kivden. Kelnus is creating scientifically perfect food customized for each judge. Hyun is making a rice bowl. Perhaps, Kivden said. But watch the judges. Watch their faces. Dr. Rena looked at the 100 judges in their seats. They were watching both chefs work. When they looked at Kelnus, they showed respect and admiration for his skill. But when they looked at Hyun, something else appeared in their expressions. Curiosity, interest, something softer. "They're connecting with him," Kiv then observed. "Kelnus is impressive, but he's not relatable. He's a machine doing machine things. Hyun is alive. He makes mistakes and corrects them. He tastes and adjusts. He cooks the way their ancestors probably cooked, before their species became advanced and forgot about the simple pleasure of preparing food with care." With 1 hour remaining, both dishes began to take final form. Kelnus had created individual portions for each judge, each one slightly different, each one perfectly calculated. They looked like art pieces, beautiful, geometric, precisely arranged, colors and textures that probably shouldn't exist together but somehow worked because of his calculations. Hyun made one large bowl of bibimbap and then replicated it 100 times exactly the same way. Each bowl had rice at the bottom, topped with arranged vegetables in a circular pattern like flower petals, meat in the center, a fried egg on top, and a side of spicy gochujang sauce. It looked simple, humble, like something you might eat at home. The timer reached 0. "Time," Kiv then announced. "Step away from your stations." Both chefs stepped back. Servers began bringing the food to the judges, who had been instructed to taste Kelnas's food first, then Hyun's. Kelnas's dishes arrived on elegant plates, each one a masterpiece of molecular gastronomy. The judges examined them with interest, scanning the unusual presentations. Then they began to eat. The response was immediate and positive. Judges made sounds of approval in their various languages. Some stood up in excitement, others vibrated or changed colors in ways that indicated pleasure. "This is extraordinary," one judge announced. "The flavors are perfectly balanced for my species' taste receptors." "I've never experienced such precise flavor engineering," another agreed. "It's scientifically flawless." Kelnus allowed himself a small mechanical smile. The first round had gone exactly as planned. Then Hyun's bibimbap arrived. The judges looked at the simple bowls with confusion. After the elaborate artistry of Kelnus's dishes, Hyun's food looked almost disappointing. Plain rice, vegetables, an egg. Nothing spectacular. "Before you eat," Hyun said, his voice amplified through the arena, "let me explain bibimbap. In Korean, it means mixed rice. You're supposed to mix everything together, the vegetables, the meat, the egg, the sauce. Each ingredient is good alone, but together they become something more. It's a dish about harmony, about different things coming together to create balance." He paused and his voice became softer. "I made this the same way I make it for my daughter, with care, with love, hoping that whoever eats it will feel that care, even if they don't know me, even if we're different species from different worlds. Because that's what food is supposed to do. It's supposed to connect us." The judges began to mix their bibimbap, following Hyun's instructions. They stirred everything together until the white rice turned orange from the gochujang. The egg yolk made everything creamy, and all the separate components became one unified dish. Then they tasted. The arena went silent. One judge, a crystalline being similar to Daxel, began to glow with warm golden light. Another judge, a floating gas creature, pulsed with colors that their species used to express deep emotion. A third judge, an insectoid being, made a clicking sound that translated as something between a laugh and a sob. "What is this?" one judge whispered. Kelnus's food was perfect, technically flawless, but this makes me feel home, another judge finished. "It makes me feel like home, like safety, like someone cares about me." "It's the same for all of us," a third judge said, looking around at the others. Kelnus made each portion different, optimized for each species, but we all got the same thing from the humans' food. We all felt cared for. "How is that possible?" Jiho leaned forward in his seat. Because Hyun wasn't cooking for their species. He was cooking for them as individuals, for their souls, not their biology. The judges began talking among themselves, comparing their experiences. Every single one of them had felt something emotional from Hyun's bibimbap. Some remembered childhoods. Some felt comfort they hadn't experienced in years. Some simply felt less alone. Kelna stood at his station, his mechanical mind processing this development. I don't understand. My dishes were chemically perfect. I calculated every variable. How did simple mixed rice create a stronger response? Because perfection isn't the same as meaning, Hyun said gently. Your food was perfect for bodies. My food was made for hearts. Bodies need nutrition, but hearts need love. The voting began. The judges were asked to place a token in one of two containers, one for Kelnas, one for Hyun. They voted one at a time, each judge walking to the center of the arena to make their choice. Nara squeezed Dr. Rina's hand, watching intently. The first judge chose Kelnas. The second chose Kelnas. The third chose Hyun. The fourth chose Hyun. The voting continued, tokens clattering into containers. The arena stayed silent except for that sound, metal against metal, determining Earth's fate one vote at a time. When all 100 judges had voted, Kiv then approached the containers. He counted carefully, his 4 arms sorting through the tokens. Then he looked up, his large eyes finding Hyun in the arena. The votes are counted, Kiv then announced. Kelnas received 23 votes. 23. That meant Hyun received 77 votes. The human wins. The arena erupted. Half the observers cheered. The other half sat in stunned silence. Nara jumped up and down, screaming, I told you! I told you Papa makes the best food! Hyun's legs felt weak. He grabbed the edge of his cooking station for support. 77. He had won by 77 to 23. It wasn't even close. Kelna stood motionless at his station, his computer brain trying to process what had happened. I miscalculated, he said quietly. I optimized for pleasure. I should have optimized for emotion. You can't optimize for emotion, Hyun said, walking over to the cybernetic chef. Emotion isn't a formula. It's not something you can calculate or engineer. It's something you have to feel and then try to share with others. That's what makes it special. That's what makes it human. Kelnas looked at Hyun with his mechanical eyes. I have cooked for 500 years. I have access to every recipe in the known galaxy. But I have never learned what you know. Because I cannot feel what you feel. Maybe, Hyun said gently. Or maybe you just haven't tried. Food isn't just about technique and recipes. It's about cooking for someone and wanting them to be happy. Even a machine can learn that. In the observation deck, Sorval stood and left without a word, his plans defeated. General Krath growled in frustration but couldn't challenge the result. The vote had been fair, and the human had won decisively. Speaker Threnax's light pulsed with warm colors as he approached the arena floor. Chef Hyun has demonstrated that humanity offers something the galaxy needs. Not because humans are more advanced, but because you remember what we forgot. You remember that we're not just bodies that need fuel. We're beings that need connection, care, and love. Earth's trading rights are confirmed. No one may challenge them again. Nara ran down from the observation deck and crashed into her father's arms. Hyun held his daughter tight, tears streaming down his face. You won, Papa, you won! We won, Hyun corrected. Humanity won, because we know how to cook with love. And across the galaxy, billions of beings watched and wondered if maybe, just maybe, they had been wrong about what progress meant. Maybe becoming advanced didn't mean losing the simple things. Maybe the most sophisticated civilizations weren't the ones with the best technology, but the ones who remembered how to care. 10 years later, the small restaurant in Seoul still had only 10 tables. But now, those tables hosted guests from across the galaxy. Hyun stood in his kitchen, older now with gray in his hair, watching his staff work. 3 of them were human, trained in traditional Korean cooking. 4 were aliens who had come to Earth specifically to learn from him. They moved together in practiced harmony, preparing dishes for the evening service. The restaurant had become something between a cultural embassy and a training ground. Every month, new apprentices arrived from different worlds, eager to learn not just recipes, but the human approach to food, to learn how to cook with heart instead of just technique. Through the kitchen window, Hyun could see Earth's sky. It looked different now. Ships came and went regularly, trading goods and culture. The planet that had once been alone in the universe was now a hub of galactic activity. And it had all started because a little girl told some aliens that her papa made the best food. Chef Hyun, one of his alien apprentices, approached. Her name was Lyra, and she came from a water world where food had traditionally been consumed raw and cold. "I'm having trouble with the kimchi jjigae. The flavors don't balance the way yours do." Hyun came to her station and tasted her stew. "It's too salty, and the kimchi hasn't had time to really bloom in the broth. What's the rush?" "The rush?" Lyra's tentacles rippled with confusion. "We open for dinner in 1 hour." "Then this stew isn't ready for tonight," Hyun said simply. "Make a new pot. Start earlier tomorrow. Kimchi jjigae can't be rushed. That's the first lesson." "But the customers will wait, or order something else, or come back another day," Hyun said with a smile. "We don't serve food that isn't ready, even if it's inconvenient. That's the second lesson." Lyra bowed in the way her species showed respect and started a new pot. Hyun watched her work more carefully this time, more patiently. She was learning. The front door chimed. Hyun looked up to see a familiar face. Daxel entered, his crystalline body glowing with warm colors that meant happiness. "Daxel, I didn't know you were visiting Earth." "I'm not visiting," Daxel said. "I've moved here. I'm opening a restaurant 3 blocks away. Korean crystalline fusion cuisine. I wanted to ask your blessing." Hyun laughed. "You don't need my blessing, but you have it anyway. What made you decide to move?" "You did," Daxel said simply. 10 years ago, I thought I knew everything about food. I had reviewed restaurants on 600 worlds. Then I tried your kimchi jjigae and realized I knew nothing at all. I've spent the last decade relearning everything, learning that food isn't about perfection. It's about connection." They talked for a while about recipes and techniques. Then Daxel left, and Hyun went back to his kitchen with a warm feeling in his chest. The galaxy was changing, one meal at a time. That evening, the restaurant filled with its usual mix of humans and aliens. Kiv then sat at his regular table, now a permanent resident of Earth, serving as the alien liaison ambassador. Tala, the bear creature, was there too, teaching a class on human culinary history at a nearby university. Velmos dropped by whenever his trading routes brought him to Earth, which was surprisingly often. Dr. Rena came in with a group of new diplomats, aliens who were learning about Earth culture. "Chef Hyun, could we have a tasting menu? These are representatives from the Outer Rim systems. They've never tried human food before." "Of course," Hyun said. He prepared a journey through Korean cuisine, pajeon, japchae, bulgogi, and of course, kimchi jjigae. With each dish, he explained not just what it was, but why it mattered. The history, the tradition, the love. The new aliens ate with wide eyes and expressions of wonder. One of them, a young being who looked like a floating cluster of lights, asked, "Is all human food like this?" "No," Hyun said. "Every region of Earth has different food, different histories, different techniques, different flavors. What I make is just one small part of human cuisine." "How many parts are there?" the light being asked. Hyun thought about it. "Thousands? Millions? Humans have been cooking for as long as we've been human. Every family has their own recipes. Every grandmother passes down her own secrets. You could spend a lifetime exploring human food and never taste everything." The aliens looked at each other in amazement. Their own worlds had perhaps a dozen traditional dishes each. The idea of millions of recipes was overwhelming. As the evening service wound down and the last customers left, Hyun began cleaning his kitchen. It was a ritual he never delegated. This was his space, his sanctuary, and he wanted to care for it himself. The door chimed again. Hyun looked up, ready to say they were closed, but the words died in his throat. Nara stood in the doorway, but not the 8-year-old child who had changed the galaxy with a simple declaration. This was Nara at 18. Wearing the uniform of the Galactic Diplomatic Academy, carrying bags that suggested she'd just returned from a long journey. "Papa," she said, and her voice still had that same confidence it had carried 10 years ago. "I'm home." Hyun dropped his cleaning cloth and rushed to hug his daughter. She'd grown tall, nearly as tall as him now, but in his arms, she was still his little girl. "I didn't know you were coming back so soon. The academy doesn't break for another month." "I graduated early," Nara said, pulling back to grin at him. "Top of my class in cultural exchange and xenodiplomacy. They're assigning me to the Earth Galactic Relations Committee." "That's wonderful. I'm so proud of you." "I learned from the best," Nara said. "You taught me that the best way to bring people together is to share something you made with love. I just applied that lesson to diplomacy instead of cooking." They sat at one of the restaurant tables, and Hyun made tea. It was late, and the streets outside were quiet. Father and daughter sat in the peaceful silence of being together again. "Do you remember that day in the council chamber?" Nara asked. "When I told them you made the best food? How could I forget? You changed our entire world with one sentence." "I was so sure I was right," Nara said, smiling at the memory. "I didn't understand why the adults looked so worried. To me it was simple. Papa makes good food, aliens need good food, so they should try Papa's food. Basic logic." "Child logic," Hyun corrected gently. "Adults forget how to think that simply. We complicate everything with fears and doubts." "Maybe that's why it worked," Nara said. "Because I didn't know enough to be afraid. I just knew you made food that made me feel loved, and I thought everyone should feel that way." Hyun squeezed his daughter's hand. "You know what? In 10 years of being Earth's unofficial culinary ambassador, the thing I'm most proud of isn't the trade deals or the cultural exchanges or even winning that challenge against Kelnus. It's that my daughter grew up to be someone who wants to make others feel loved and connected. That's the best recipe I ever created." Nara laughed. "You're getting sentimental in your old age." "I'm 48, not ancient." "Ancient enough to have gray hair?" They talked long into the night about her time at the academy, about the friends she'd made from different species, about the work she'd be doing. She told him about a project she wanted to start. A cultural exchange program that would send human chefs to teach on other worlds and bring alien chefs to Earth to learn. "It's not just about spreading human food," Nara explained. "It's about teaching the philosophy behind it. That food can be more than nutrition, that cooking for someone is a way of showing you care. Some species are starting to remember their own food traditions that they'd abandoned. It's beautiful, Papa. You started a renaissance." "We started it," Hyun corrected. "You and me. Together." As the night grew later, Nara yawned. "I should sleep, but I'm hungry. Could you make me something?" "What do you want?" "Bibimbap," Nara said immediately. "The birthday bibimbap. I haven't had it in a year." Hyun smiled and went to his kitchen. Even late at night, even tired from a full day's work, making food for his daughter brought him joy. He prepared each ingredient with care, the same way he'd been doing since she was small. While he cooked, Nara walked around the restaurant looking at the pictures on the walls. There were new ones now. Photos of alien apprentices, newspaper articles about Earth's culinary revolution, images of restaurants opened by his students on distant worlds. But the old pictures were still there too. Hyun's father, his grandmother, regular customers who had been coming for decades. The restaurant honored both the past and the future. "You kept it small," Nara observed. "People have offered you money to expand, to open franchises across the galaxy. You could be wealthy. But you stayed here with 10 tables. 10 tables is enough," Hyun said, mixing the bibimbap and bringing it to her. "I'm not trying to feed the galaxy. I'm trying to feed people, one bowl at a time, with care, with love. You can't do that if you get too big." Nara took a bite and closed her eyes, savoring it. "It tastes exactly the same as I remember." "How do you do that?" "Practice," Hyun said. "And because I make it the same way every time. No shortcuts. No rushing. Your bibimbap takes me an hour to prepare properly. I've never tried to make it faster." "That's the secret, isn't it?" Nara said, understanding. "That's what you've been teaching everyone. That good things take time. That caring takes effort. That you can't optimize love." "Smart daughter," Hyun said proudly. They ate together in comfortable silence. Outside, Earth slept under a sky full of stars that were no longer mysterious or distant. They were neighbors now, friends, partners in a galaxy that was learning what humanity had always known. That breaking bread together was the oldest and best way to build bonds between strangers. A message notification appeared on Nara's datapad. She read it and smiled. "The Council wants to honor you next month. A ceremony recognizing your contribution to galactic culture. They're calling you the father of modern galactic cuisine." Hyun shook his head. "That's too grand. I'm just a cook." "You're the cook who changed everything," Nara corrected. "But I get it. You don't care about titles or fame. You just want to make good food for people you care about." "Exactly. Well, too bad. You're getting honored anyway. And I'm going to be there watching my papa receive medals from species across the galaxy, and I'm going to be so proud I might cry." Hyun laughed. "Fine, I'll accept their medals. But then I'm coming back here to my restaurant with 10 tables, because this is where I belong." They finished eating, and Hyun washed the dishes while Nara told him more stories from the academy. Then they went upstairs to the apartment where Nara had grown up, where her childhood bedroom still waited for her. Before she went to sleep, Nara hugged her father tight. "Thank you, Papa." "For what?" "For teaching me that the most powerful thing in the universe is caring about others. For showing me that being human isn't about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about being kind and patient and willing to share the things you love. That's what changed the galaxy. Not technology or military power, just a dad who made good food for his daughter and was willing to share it with anyone who was hungry." Hyun held his daughter, his heart full. "You know what the funny thing is? I was terrified that day 10 years ago, terrified of failing, of letting Earth down, of proving that humans weren't special after all. But you weren't scared. You just knew that good food made with love was special and you wanted to share it." "You were right." "We were both right," Nara said. "You made the best food. I just told people about it. That's how it works. You do the loving thing and I help spread it to others. We're a good team." "The best team," Hyun agreed. That night, Hyun dreamed of his restaurant full of beings from across the stars, all of them eating together, laughing together, connected by the simple act of sharing a meal. In his dream, his father and grandmother were there too, smiling with pride at what their recipes had become. When he woke the next morning, Nara was already up, helping prep the kitchen for the day like she used to when she was little. Some things never changed. Father and daughter, working side by side, preparing food with love. The restaurant opened at noon. The first customers were a mix of humans and aliens. Regulars and newcomers, all of them hungry for more than just food. They were hungry for connection, for meaning, for the feeling of being cared about. And Hyun fed them, one bowl at a time, just like he always had. Because 10 years ago, a little girl had stood before the Galactic Trade Committee and declared that her papa made the best food. She had been right then, she was still right now, and she would always be right. Not because Hyun's food was chemically perfect or scientifically optimized, but because it was made with love, served with care, and shared with anyone who was hungry, for food, for connection, or simply for the feeling of being home. And that, Hyun thought as he watched his daughter serve tables with a smile, was the recipe that had saved the world. Not ingredients or techniques, but the simple human act of cooking for others and hoping they would feel loved. The galaxy had learned that lesson, and it would never forget it. In a universe full of wonders and miracles, the most magical thing turned out to be the most ordinary. A father making food for his daughter, and a daughter loving him enough to share that food with the stars.